Welcome to another edition of Art of the Kickstart. Today I am super excited because we're talking about kegs. Yes, the Cooler Keg. I'm speaking with Mr. Anthony Bernas, CEO and co-founder of the Cooler Keg. Their campaign, it's over on In Demand, over on Indiegogo. It is a portable draft system that allows you to serve up anything on draft anywhere, right? So cocktails, beer, you name it, champagne, cider, seltzer, all of that. I'm really excited to talk about this campaign and all of the product innovation that's come about this. So Anthony, thank you so much for joining us today on Art of the Kickstart.
It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. So the campaign raised over $218,000. Congrats. That puts you in the elite level of all crowdfunding campaigns ever launched. But before we get into the campaign, let's talk a little bit about your background, right? So what are you doing now and how did you get into this industry?
All right, well, right now, obviously, we just finished our campaign, and my co-founder and I were starting this business to make Cooler Keg as successful as we can. But before this, I started off my career as a chemist, did that for a few years, and then I moved to Chicago and started working with nonprofits. At that time is when I kind of took up the love of homebrewing. So now we see the connection to the Cooler Keg.
Yep.
Specifically, my career currently is a nurse. I went back to school. I changed careers. I'm an ER nurse, and in the last couple years, as we all had a little extra time at home, I was able to focus on this passion project and combine my love of homebrewing with, starting a business.
Amazing. Well, I can't imagine the stress that being an ER nurse has been over the last few years, and thus relating back to alcohol. But in terms of the product itself, I'm really excited to kind of, hear more about the innovation itself and kind of the process and what you've had to go through to kind of get the product to the point where it's almost ready for shipping.
Absolutely. So what at first, it all starts with the idea. And for us, my co-founder and my fiance, Racine, her parents retired to a lake. And so our friends and I would go out once a summer, go out for the weekend, and we'd party at the lake. And it was just a blast. And obviously there was drinking involved, and we got very good at it year over year. So you start off with a mismatch of floats, but then you get the best floats that work, and you get, we got carabiners and paracord and tie ourselves together so we stop floating away. We got an anchor and a float for the cooler. And it was a couple years ago when somebody said, what are we going to do next year? And my buddy's like, you're a home brewer. He goes, I want to draft beer in the middle of the lake. So you have to have that spark. Something gives you that light bulb that says, I think I can do that. Because being a home brewer, I was like, wait a minute. I think I can make this work. So, getting to where we are, it took a lot of Google. And luckily we live in this world where if you want an answer, do the research, it's out there. So I just had to source all the components small enough and create the ones that didn't exist and smashed it into a cooler. And the first one was not as pretty as this one, the final product, but it worked. We were drinking draft, floating in the middle of a lake, and we got quite a few, boats to slow down and rubberneck looking at us going, what are they doing?
Well, that's when you have something there, right? When it's a showstopper and people, nowadays stop scrolling, right? But on the boat,
Exactly.
It's a different life. Talk about, again, obviously, I think a lot of creators can have that inspiration, right? Or that aha moment, but a lot of them kind of stop there, right? Like what do you think it was inside of you? Obviously the need to create something that helped out, the situation that you guys were in to, enjoy a ice cold draft in the middle of the lake. What do you think it was, maybe internally that you have that, other founders could relate to, or, kind of get up off the couch this winter during the holidays and finally launch their thing?
The drive to build something, make something, do something, I don't know how to give that to someone else, but it just comes down to, like, if you grew up taking things apart, if you grew up fixing things, following your dad around when he had his toolbox, like, it's in you. Yeah. Like, we all have that desire to know how something works. So how do you get from idea to doing something? Well, like you said, you get off the couch and you go do it. Because if you don't have, if it doesn't exist, you do what I do. You say, I need something that allows me to take the draft tower off the cooler when I'm transporting it. So I went to Home Depot and I walked up and down the aisles looking, I don't even know what I was looking for. And
Yeah.
I stopped in the shower section, and the second prototype used a shower drain retrofitted, like upside down, Mickey Mouse, and it worked. So, what's the drive? Just have fun with it. Be creative, go to the arts and crafts store and turn it into an art project, and just use, if you have to use cardboard, hot glue, and glitter, go for it.
Yep. So I'm interested to know kind of at what point in the process did you figure out or realize that crowdfunding
Mhm.
was a good way for you to raise enough capital to then start this process seriously as a legitimate product business?
I don't know what exactly led us to that realization, but just through my exposure online to however I came across it, I just knew that Kickstarter, Indiegogo existed.
Okay.
And what it came down to is making the first. We even struggle to say it was the first prototype. Really, I built something for me and my friends.
Yeah.
And when I showed it to them, they were like, "You have something." And it was like, "Oh, you're right. I need to make this manufacturable because the first one I made is not scalable." Um, but we kind of stepped back and we're like, well, how do we know that we're actually going to be able to sell this? Do we really go take out a huge business loan, or leverage every dime you can scrape from you, your friends, and your family? And instead it was like, wait a minute, we can do a crowd fund, find out if the public actually wants this product,
Yep.
and use that as the, yes, this is viable, this is not a waste of time and money, let's do this. So that's what kind of landed us on that as a kind of a backwards approach,
Yeah.
starting a business.
Sometimes that's the best way to fall into things too,
Yeah.
where you kind of, again, get market validation from other boats stopping,
Oh, yeah.
your friends telling you this is a good idea. Hopefully they supported you when the campaign was active,
Mhm.
but that's a good way to go about it, of course. What I'm really interested in, given that this was your first crowdfunding experience as a creator, potentially as a backer as well, what were some of the things that surprised you the most, or, that you would let other founders know about, kind of some of the caveats or tricks that you learned along the way?
Oh, Lord. Um, isn't that a question to unpack? Um, the things that surprise me, I'd say, is when I really looked into it, the amount of prep work that you have to do for a campaign.
Hmm.
Because I definitely went into it with rose colored glasses on. Like, I can come up with a prototype and people are going to love the idea, and I can put it out there and they're going to believe in me and I can get all these sales. And then you start doing the research and you find out that it's like, oh, you need to have pretty much a finalized product. They really want to see that it's functional, it's beautiful, it works, and you need to put months into building a list through your social media campaigns. Whether you do paid advertisements or bring on an agency to help you, you need to have a huge list of emails so that the day you launch, you tell everyone and they come support you right away. So don't underestimate how much time and effort goes into the pre-campaign
Yeah.
versus the actual campaign. That right there can't be overstated enough.
How much work did you do, and how big of a list were you able to grow? Because it looks like once the campaign launched, you had a pretty good, successful first day.
We did. So we formed our LLC in November of 2021. We really started, like, I started working full time. Racine, the co-founder, she still works full time, whereas I took a break from nursing, and like focused my efforts on this. So since January of this year,
Hmm.
so we really focused on starting to like get emails and build the list. And I'd say March or April. So it was like a solid 6 months, and we gathered 25,000 emails,
Wow.
and our social media following hit 30 or 35,000, thanks to a viral TikTok.
There you go. Something that you shot, or that?
I shot. Well, my friend shot of me in my basement prepping the cooler keg to go use in my backyard at a party.
Amazing. One viral TikTok, and we have
Oh,
success.
it was wild.
That's pretty wild. The reach of social media. So, what, if anything, launching your next campaign, would you do differently?
I would get on social media sooner, faster, and you have to let down your guard, because the most important thing right now is authenticity, being genuine, because the post I spent 0 seconds prepping for, I may have had a drink or two in me, and I said, here's my phone, hit record. And I'm
Yeah.
like, hey, all right, I'm getting the cooler keg ready. It's, blah, 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 and just did it. And then we ended it. That's the post that went viral versus the I video edited for 4 days to be like this amazing thing. And it just kind of went wah, wah.
Yeah.
So you just got to be yourself, put it out there, because people know when you're being genuine and they will appreciate it, react to it, and follow you more.
Amazing. Well, I know it's been quite a journey. Right now, you're going through trying to find the right manufacturers and get this product shipped out
Yes.
there. What after that? Once you finally ship this product out there, what's next for the Cooler Keg?
Oh Lord. So we have a lot of future product ideas, expansions of this. Obviously, smaller as well as larger versions. We have proof of concept for nitrogen in here, so that we can do nitrogenated beers as well as cold brew coffee. Looking into like argon options for wine. Yeah, so just basically expanding the capabilities of the Cooler Keg. Yeah, so just product line expansion as well as like add-on, other fun things to use this at all kinds of parties and fun, events.
Amazing. Well, I'm getting thirsty. That must mean I'm getting into the launch round where I'm going to rapid fire a handful of questions at you. Anthony, you ready to go?
Do it.
Let's do this. So, what inspired you to be an entrepreneur?
So I grew up in a family that owned a restaurant. My co-founder, she grew up in a family that had a small business, so I think we were always around it. But honestly, it's like, to all the nurses out there, nothing but love. But being a nurse and after wiping as many butts as I have, I think that inspired me to maybe try something else.
Maybe just a little bit. So, if you could meet with any entrepreneur throughout history, who would you want to have a beer with?
Ooh, that is a good, wow.
Live
Preston
or dead?
Preston Tucker.
Okay.
I am an old car guy. I've been working on and restoring cars with my dad most of my life. And if you have not seen that movie called Tucker, that is it's a great family movie. And it's about a guy in, like, I think it was the 40s, maybe 50s, but he really took automotive to the next level. He was innovative. He went up against the big established giants. It's a great story and it's a beautiful car. And he's a cool guy.
What would be your first question for him?
Tell me the craziest story of how they tried to squash the little guy. Because as entrepreneurs, we are all the little guy.
Yep.
So we need to know how to avoid the boot.
What's your favorite homebrew beer?
My favorite homebrew beer. So we had a garden in the backyard when we lived in Chicago, and I grew rhubarb for rhubarb pies. My grandma made them growing up, and I made a rhubarb pale ale that was pretty good, I must say.
Amazing. One of my good friends up in Maine, Amanda, runs a 1820 winery, and all they make is rhubarb wine, and it is absolutely amazing.
Oh, that's amazing.
What book would you recommend to our listeners?
You mean like other than Harry Potter?
No, Harry Potter's a great book for fantasy.
It's been a while since I read it, but I do remember when the first book that made me rethink things was The 4-Hour Workweek.
Tim Ferriss, sure.
Yeah, it's been a while since I read it, so I can't remember how well it's aged, but I do remember that one being like forcing you to look at things and think about things differently.
Nice.
Yeah.
Last two questions. What's one invention that's made your life easier this past year?
The pasta maker. During the pandemic, I learned how to make homemade pasta. And that little thing, you crank the thing and the pasta comes out flat.
Amazing. Toasted with a nice new beer. All right, last question, Anthony, and I know you just finished up your campaign, but interested to hear your take on what does the future of crowdfunding look like?
Interesting. I would say I will go back to what I was saying about social media and being genuine and authentic. I think all forms of media online, including crowdfunding, are going to have to adapt to survive. And that being is be yourself, be genuine, be authentic. I think we're going to see crowdfunding move towards that and maybe away from the big money the campaigns that you can tell.
Yeah.
Again, like it's kind of hard to like put into words, but you know when somebody created an image or a video versus like a company did.
Yep.
And I think genuine authenticity is the path forward.
Amazing. Well, Anthony, this is your opportunity to give our audience your final pitch. Tell people what you're all about, where they should go, and why they should check out the Cooler Keg.
All right. The Cooler Keg, first of all, is thecoolerkeg.com. It is a portable draft system that lets you have anything on draft anywhere. This was made, it's a party item. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. One of my favorite quotes I had from somebody, they came in, they looked at it, they said, "This is the most unnecessary yet amazing invention of 2022." Because it's not just beer. We take the kegs you can take them to your local bar, you can take them to a brewery, and they'll fill the kegs like a growler. The kegs are wide mouth openings. You can put anything you want in there, whether it's cocktails. We've done margaritas and Cosmos and you name it. We've done sparkling wine. We've done, I mean, if it's liquid, you put it in, it'll come out the other end. So it just takes your parties to the next level. And the one thing I will say is you can even fill with prepackaged beer. And there's nothing better than at the end of a party to only have 6 or 8 glasses that you throw in the dishwasher rather than trying to find all the empty cans that people randomly put places around your house.
Yep. Amazing. Well, Anthony, thanks so much for joining us on the show. Audience, thanks for tuning in. Make sure to visit artofthekickstart.com for the notes, the transcript, links to thecoolerkeg.com, as well as a special discount code that Anthony's been giving us. Make sure to visit the website. And of course, I got to give a big shout out to our crowdfunding podcast sponsor over at Product Hype, the top newsletter for new products that just launched. Anthony, thank you so much for joining us today on Art of the Kickstart.
Thank you so much for having me.